All right, and we're here. Long time no see. She's with me finally back. I hope everybody can hear us good, see us good. See who's in here right now. Hello, Teresa Sutton, Zigzag, Suzanne Downing, Babs Babylicious 10. Good to see you. Sarah Lee, Kim Holmes. Thank you guys for being here. Music City Mom. Man, it's good to see y'all. It's good to be back. If you're new and you haven't ever seen us before, I'm Cam. That's Allie. And we haven't been on as often as we should be. We're trying to get back to it. It's just been Patty Ponytail. How are you? Blue Eyes Dumpling. Good to see all y'all. And I'll get in here, Curls and Crime. Hey guys, like the morning. Yo, Bubs. It's good to see all y'all. So, yeah, what I was going to get into. I was kind of doing the David Dodson thing, which we'll end up continuing and finishing that out. But there's been a lot of stuff that's come out, and this one right here has been really into the Idaho 4 case. What's going on with everything with that? Kind of the narrative that's being pushed. That I'm gonna be honest with you. This isn't. It's like, okay, so I don't know if you guys are familiar with it, but we heard everything about the to the eye thing. You go ahead with it.
What, the bushy
No,
eyebrows?
not the bushy eyebrows.
What are you talking about? The eye thing.
I just lost. I lost my
You
train
heard
of thought.
everything about the eye thing, whatever that is.
It's not
All I
even
could
him.
think of was bushy eyebrows. As related to the Idaho 4.
Yeah, Brian Cover, the disorder, yes.
Oh, snow.
Yeah.
Gosh.
You know what we're talking about.
If you hadn't blanked, then I wouldn't
I
have
blanked
on it.
completely. Eye snow.
No, not eye snow.
I completely blanked.
It's like
Vision snow.
Vision snow.
That is it, isn't it?
Something like that.
Anyway, so people have looked into the email. It's not even good. It doesn't even go back to him. So I think it was
right. So the YouTube account that's linked to the page that was posting about the eye disorder, it's not even him. It's not Brian Koberger. So who knows if that person that was posting those things was ever even Brian?
Correct. Thank
Basically,
you.
is what
Thank
you
you
were
for
trying to
covering
say.
that. Yeah. So another YouTuber, Sleazy Goosey, is that who found it?
She's mostly active on Twitter, I think.
Active on Twitter, but she found it and she followed it. Do you want to? Should I pull that up?
Yeah. Visual snow.
Visual snow. That's what it is.
Visionary.
Okay. I was reading, trying to keep up with the chat there. So, but we've got a couple of things to cover before we go there. But it's like what I wanted to get into is it's like the mainstream media sometimes wants to push a narrative. If it's not all about, tearing somebody's, yes, there's a lot of people that are out there. We're not on anybody's side, but there is a lot of people that don't want to hear anything else about Brian Koberger.
Well, it's just they forget that we are in America and that we have a right to be considered innocent until proven guilty.
Due process.
And right.
Yeah.
So basically, as soon as he was arrested, everybody just was like, oh, he's the one that did it. And they hadn't even seen the evidence yet. And now I will, granted, the affidavit, when it first came out, I was like, wow, they've got quite a bit. But then the more that I looked into it, like the more I read over it multiple times. And the more I read over it, I was like, they really don't have, all their stuff is just, what's the word? Circumstantial.
Circumstantial, yeah. And, a lot of people didn't get to see it. And I might play it right now about the touch DNA. I made a video about it a couple of weeks ago. Good. And I think I might pull that up, actually. And
because that's really the only thing that they have that's physical evidence at this point.
And if you don't know about touch DNA, it's not always the most solid.
It's the most unreliable source of DNA that you can have.
That's right.
At a crime scene.
That's absolute truth. So give me 1 second and I'll pull that up if you want to continue.
Well, it's just, so in the last few days, there's been the traffic stop came out where he had gotten a ticket in Washington. Or, well, no, he had not gotten a ticket. He got pulled over in Washington. And it seems like so many people watched that, and instead of looking at that as just a person getting pulled over, they automatically looked at it as, oh, this man has committed this heinous act. So we're going to look at this traffic stop and we're just going to pick it apart and say that he is just a terrible person and he's argumentative and he's just all these different things. And personally, I don't see that whenever I look at that traffic stop. To me, it looks like somebody who moved to a new state and didn't know the laws there and was trying to find out the answers.
Exactly. All right, so I found that. And I'll pull this up for you. And I want you to pay attention to this about DNA, because if you're going solely on the fact of touch DNA being just enough, that just seals the deal, it's not. And this will explain it to you pretty clearly, I think. All right. And I will make sure to add this link to the description when we get done, if you want to have this video so that you can watch it again. But check this out. Tell me what you think.
Let's get cracking.
Hey guys, been wanting to do a video on this for a while. So if you've been, following the Idaho 4 case, you know that one of the main pieces of evidence against Brian Kohberger is the DNA on the buckle of the sheath of the K-bar knife that was left on the bed beside Maddie Mogan and Kaylee Gonsalves. But touch DNA and transfer DNA isn't all that it seems, and it might not even be good enough to hold up for a conviction in court. And I'll show you why that is. I think they need to explain this a little better and let people be more educated about transfer DNA or touch DNA, because a jury goes into a trial, and just because there's DNA evidence doesn't always mean that there's that DNA belongs to that individual. Touch DNA can be transferred all over the place, and that single bit of transferred DNA on that button of the sheath could have gotten there from anywhere. So watch these clips, leave your comments, let me know what your thoughts are on this, because I'm not sold on it. And there's a few other things I'm not sold on, and we've talked about that. But again, leave your comments. Till next time, keep on cracking. God bless.
DNA can be surprisingly ambiguous. First off, DNA is everywhere. Tiny traces of skin, saliva, blood, or other DNA-containing material are often found all over a crime scene, and collecting samples is low-tech, time-consuming, and fairly error-prone. Once samples are in, investigators must figure out which are relevant to the crime, which is no small task. Worse, DNA from the perp is often mixed with that of the victim, requiring lab techs to tease out which is which. All in all, DNA evidence is frequently messy, requiring experts to try and extrapolate whether an incomplete or mixed DNA profile truly matches the reference sample. It's sort of like trying to figure out whether a few scattered puzzle pieces even belong to the picture on the box, let alone fit together. This ambiguity can lead to labs fudging results to help out investigators, or genuine errors in analysis, or even outright fraud. And all that opens the door for false positives in DNA matches.
All right, so I want to stop right there for just 1 second. And I slowed that down on purpose for everybody to hear it, because it said for DNA or for lab technicians to accidentally fudge it or outright fraud to help investigators. That's a big deal. And if people don't know about that, they definitely need to. I'm going to finish playing this because there's another clip.
Well, let me rephrase what I said. I don't mean that that's all the evidence that they have. However, whenever they come out with the PCA, so that's for the preliminary hearing, that is to convince a judge that this person, you have a strong enough case against this person to get a conviction. Therefore, more than likely, they're going to come out with their strongest pieces of evidence in that affidavit. That's what I meant by most of the evidence that they have is circumstantial. I know we don't have all of the evidence that they have against him. However, I do feel like we got the majority of the strongest.
And we're working on something with the latent footprint.
The footprint, yeah.
And I want y'all to, we're gonna get to the bottom of that too. Because if you don't know about the latent footprint that was found, that wasn't found until the second go over of the crime scene.
Right.
And that's after
As was
Dillon's,
the DNA, allegedly.
As was the DNA too.
It wasn't found until the second time that they processed that sheath.
Exactly.
Allegedly.
Right. Guys, don't think that we're ignoring you in the chat. I have to stay on topic for a minute. We'll get through our stuff, then we'll talk to you. Hey, Sarah Lee. Hey, everybody that's here. Oh my gosh. Did you see that?
Mm-hmm.
Computer's running low on storage, like always. Let's finish watching this, though. I think that you'll get a lot out of it.
Sadly, there are many examples of misused DNA evidence ruining people's lives. In 1998, Josiah Sutton was arrested and charged with raping a woman in Houston, Texas. A crime lab employee testified at the trial that Sutton was an exact match with the DNA recovered from the scene. He was convicted and spent almost 5 years in prison before a second round of testing found that he was in no way an exact match. That second test didn't make use of any new evidence. It simply interpreted the DNA more accurately.
So I'm going to back that up with another example or another piece of evidence that such DNA has been wrong multiple times.
Probably solve some of these problems and make DNA analysis more accurate. But as technology advances, it will also introduce new problems. Someday soon, analysts may be able to detect the genes from a single cell, and we leave our cells everywhere we go. Those cells can travel to places we've never even been. So it's not impossible that your DNA could be found at a crime scene and cops could knock at your door. That's what happened in 2012 to a man named Lucas Anderson. He was in the hospital at the time of the murder. It turns out that the paramedics used the same oxygen monitor on his finger that they used on the murder victim's finger later that day. And that's how Lucas's DNA was transferred to the murder victim's fingernail. Lucas Anderson was in jail for 5 months before they figured out what had happened.
There are DNA mix-ups wasting valuable time and money. For more than 15 years, investigators in Europe searched for the Phantom of Heilbronn, a criminal mastermind who left identical DNA traces at more than 40 crime scenes across the continent. After an exhaustive manhunt, the DNA in question was finally matched to a factory worker who helped make DNA test kits. So look, we're not arguing that DNA evidence doesn't work because some people don't use it right. DNA fingerprinting has revolutionized forensics, and to date has exonerated 347 wrongly convicted people in the U.S. alone. But there is a perception that DNA testing is both simple and infallible. Jurors tend to overcommit to physical evidence when it's presented as fact by experts. Researchers have even proposed a CSI effect, which is the tendency of juries to expect fast and conclusive DNA evidence in every trial. These are dangerous trends because, as sound as that science is, it's no good to anyone unless it's used within its limits, like any science. And then
So I hope that you got something from that. I mean, that's a lot.
I think that's terrifying.
It is terrifying. It said that you could eat at a gas pump, you could ride a taxi, whatever. Your DNA could end
Use
up
a
at
handrail,
use a handrail. Exactly.
anything.
What was it from him being in the ambulance
Then they
and
use
from a
the-
finger
Yeah,
monitor?
the O2 sensor.
It's frightening.
And yes, they should wipe and clean that stuff every time. However, there are certain ways whenever you use the like the wipes that we are given as medical workers that you're supposed to utilize those. And I'll be honest with you, a lot of people do not necessarily do that correctly.
That's right.
So,
Guys, I think this live is going really good, actually. This is probably one of the better ones we've had in a while.
knock on wood.
So if we ask you, and if you find any of this information interesting, we'd ask that you hit that thumbs up for us, please. Put your touch DNA on that like button. Remember that saying started right here on Cracking Cases.
You can go back,
and
find the
check
video
it.
somewhere.
That started with this guy,
Yeah,
and then
and
I was
said-
called corny.
I said it was cheesy.
Cheesy.
I didn't say I didn't like it. I said it was cheesy.
Oh, well.
But it's blown up now.
It has blown up now. A lot of the things that true crime that's one thing we're going to talk about before we get to the next part of things. Or was there was something else I wanted to put or to make sure people are aware of? The mainstream media, this is the only thing. I feel like if they fudge something or if they make a mistake just about with the Visionary Snow thing and all that, if that's not the right account, then that needs to be fixed in the mainstream that's being watched by millions. We might only affect thousands, but true crime is starting to be the mainstream look at. A lot of people turn to social media now for current updates. So, I just think that if we are ever wrong on something, we need to fix it. If you've watched this channel a long time, if we flub up on something, we try to go back and fix it. It's all about integrity and trying to stay on top of things. With the David Dotson stuff, I'm trying to show you, even with it, that goes back to the Summer Wells case that we've covered. That was our, opening case. And even though there's nothing new coming out on it now, I feel like if they've given up on her, I hope not. I hope not. Things have started to go in a different direction in that case. I don't know what the parents are doing. I don't know where they reached out to me when
Friday or Saturday.
And wanted me to come on to another channel with them. And I can't do it.
I'll be honest with you. We've been in kind of like a yo-yo situation with them for quite a while because they will contact us. They will be extremely nice. They will talk to us just like they always have. And then the next thing we know, we'll hear them a week later on another channel talking crap about us.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it is what it is.
First it is, we don't trust Cam. And then it was, he laid out information he shouldn't have about the footprints. Well, that wasn't me. That was the property owner that talked about that first.
Right.
We just brought kind of awareness to it and let people know, hey, this is the little bit of evidence that there is. And whether they want to call it physical, people use the argument all the time. Well, the footprints haven't been confirmed by law enforcement. They haven't been denied either. Now the scream they came out very quickly and said that was unfounded.
Right.
And I'm sure they've been asked about the footprints a lot. That was what they went after. And, I don't know.
I just feel like, as long as we're on that topic, I just feel like if that was kind of like a red herring, they would have said something by now.
Yeah. Hold on one second. I was going to say, what do you want to get into Austin Lee Edwards stuff real quick? Do y'all, if y'all don't remember who Austin Lee Edwards is, he's on the thumbnail too. And we really didn't hear much about it. He was an officer from Virginia who worked for the Virginia State Police, was let go from the Virginia State Police, and then became a county officer.
I don't think he was let go. He wanted to move closer to home. So he moved back to Southwest Virginia, where we live, and became an officer here, a county officer. And 9 days after becoming a county officer, he drove across the country from Virginia to California to meet a teenage girl who he had catfished. He had basically told her that he was a teenager as well, and he drove all the way across the country, got there, kidnapped her, and unalived her mom and her grandmother and grandfather, all three of which she lived with.
And tried to stage it like it was a house fire.
Yes, then set the house on fire.
And then he ended up going on a chase from law enforcement in California, and he unalived himself at the end. Well, the investigation into Virginia was very weird.
So it came to find out, like after information started coming out about him, he had a run-in, I guess, back in 2016, where he had been doing some things to himself. He had bit his father. He had tried to bite some EMTs that were on the scene. He had then threatened to unalive himself and his father, I think. And he was then put in the psychiatric ward.
Yeah.
He was TDO'd. So just that alone should have, in a way, disqualified him from ever becoming a state police officer, let alone a county
officer right behind that. But the thing about it was, when the investigation, right after it happened, the county he worked for showed up in a neighboring county by themselves and removed things from his home without
just bought that house.
Yeah, without being
without a warrant.
Escorted by that. Yeah, without a warrant and not being escorted by the county they were crossing into their jurisdiction, didn't have them to accompany them to the home. And they justified it by saying that they just went in because they could see it through the back porch. So
nobody would have ever known that this county had went in and even took things from his home if it wasn't for a neighbor who lived there who recorded it all.
Right. I think
that's interesting.
I'm gonna pull this stuff up right here too.
So there's been a lot more stuff that's come out on that, and we have not really touched on it in a while. And it's very near and dear to me for some reason. I feel like this is very important to cover. So,
well, there's kind of a reason why we haven't talked a lot about it, because where this guy came from was the county that we're from.
Where he had just been hired to work is the county that we live.
Yeah. So
therefore, the cops that went into a neighboring county were from the county that we live in.
Right. So it's, it's trying to be safe about our own, So I'm going to pull this up real quick, and we're going to go over a little bit. That if he's in the thumbnail, he's the guy in the middle of the thumbnail. And this stuff is going to be pretty interesting to you. If you want to just follow us along here, I'm going to show you. So right here it says, catfish cop Austin Lee Edwards groomed other teen years before Riverside slangs. This is a picture of him in mid 2010s.
So this is probably around the time that happened, where he was TDO'd, because that was in 2016. So
yeah, it says Edwards repeatedly solicited nude photos from a teen girl in the mid 2010s. And this is just the Washington Post says the woman was mindlessly scrolling through Instagram when she saw a face that made her freeze. Staring up from her phone screen was Austin Lee Edwards, the now deceased Virginia cop who drove across the country to Riverside and killed those relatives of a 15-year-old girl he catfished online. The news of the slayings was horrific, enough to rattle anyone. But it was not just the crime that made the woman stop scrolling. It was the memory of Edward's face. His was a face she could never forget. She saw it dozens of times on video chats nearly a decade ago. When Edwards was 20 and she was 13, she began to cry and almost threw up. Let me make sure y'all are seeing this. Okay, you're seeing it too. All right. Let me go back over here. All right. Said, I felt so sick seeing his face because I hadn't seen it in years. The woman, now 21, told the Times. I read the whole story and it made me feel disgusting. This guy stalked me and groomed me when I was a child, she said. The Times reviewed nearly 4,000 messages provided by the woman and the other, and that offered deeper insight into Edward's psyche. The messages show that Edwards repeatedly pressured her to share nude photos of herself, even after she disclosed that she was barely a teenager. The woman told the Times that she shared with Edwards nude photos of herself while she was a child. The Times does not generally identify victims of child SA. The messages, portions of which were initially shared with the Times by Justin Smith, co-host of It's Cryptic Out There, a crime and paranormal podcast, provide greater detail of a 2016 incident in which Edwards was detained for psychiatric evaluation after cutting his hand and threatening to unalive himself and his father. They show that the woman, then 14, had tried to cut off contact with Edwards less than 2 weeks before he harmed himself. The woman told the Times that she wanted to share her story to let the public know that Edwards had a history of grooming and soliciting images from minors, even before he was hired as a law enforcement officer. She spoke with Edwards on and off for about 2 years, she said. When they first connected, they talked multiple times a week. The 13-year-old and 20-year-old first met in October 2014 on Omegle, an online platform that randomly pairs users to communicate. One day later,
Scary.
yeah,
Randomly pairs users to communicate.
it's insane.
Yeah.
One day later, on October 25th, 2014, they began talking on Skype. The pair initially bonded over memes, the woman said. But the conversations very quickly turned S-word there. Yo, what the F, I said. I wanted that word waiting on me when I got back, Edwards wrote on October 26, 2014.
So that's 2 days after he starts talking to her.
She says, I'm sorry. In messages, Edwards would also repeatedly drop homophobic and racist slurs, including the N-word. But he also seemed to be under the false impression that the girl he was chatting with was black. You're black, right? He wrote on October 29, 2014. I have jungle fever. Let's do this. Edwards was aware that the woman, who is white, was a minor when they first began chatting. He would often wait for her to finish school in order to video chat or to respond, messages show. Did I tell you I went trick-or-treating? Edwards wrote on November 6, 2014. After she responded, nope. Edwards wrote, I totally did. I'm 20. Me too, she wrote back. I'm 13. The messages indicate that she and Edwards spoke for at least 2 years and that his behavior changed dramatically from day to day and moment to moment. Edwards would often make jokes and use humor, but later would express sadness and despair. Edwards would occasionally speak about disliking his father and wanting to eat, the woman said.
What?
Edwards would occasionally speak about disliking his father and wanting to eat. The woman said, she said he would complain of his hunger because of lack of money and that he would intentionally starve himself when he was depressed. Wow. Their conversations often delved into self-harm and unaliving oneself. Edwards would say she was the only person he had and would threaten to unalive himself if she ever stopped talking to him, the woman recalled. He would often show his that word and that
His
word,
weapons.
his weapons collection over video, she said. Edwards would also convey his violent thoughts. On April 10th, 2015, he asked her to Skype. I can't yet, she told him. Why is that? He replied. Because my mom, she said. He said, unalive her, he wrote and added, I'm going to give myself a black eye, okay? Dude, it's crazy. I think that's enough right there, that one.
Yeah. So basically, this was not the first time that he had contacted a minor, and he knowingly did this.
Yeah. That's too much right there.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. Guys, yeah, total sicko. Exactly. That's exactly what we said too. This is crazy. She found a lot of articles on him.
And the crazy thing about this, so you kind of can see his like online persona, but now every person that I have seen that knew him in real life, every single one of them has said they never would have thought anything like this. Actually, people who were friends with him when the incident back in November occurred, when he actually went to California, they actually thought that he was going to meet his longtime girlfriend. That's what he had explained to them that he was doing. So they were under the impression that he was going to meet up with his girlfriend and that it was just a normal trip that an adult would take.
Yeah.
And then everything unfolded.
I'm going to pull up this next one real quick. This is with the same guy. Now, this is the thing, though. This guy became a state trooper and a county officer. But after he was TDO'd in the state of Virginia, you're not supposed to have your gun rights whatsoever.
Until you
go to a hearing.
Yeah, petition the court, basically. Which there's nothing to show that he ever did that.
Hey, Michelle Davis, how are you? Hey, Jacqueline Jones, good to see you. Everybody that came in, it's good to see you. Thank y'all so much. I'm trying to get through this before we get off topic. And smacking my head passed out due to.
Oh gosh.
Oh my gosh. Oh, I hope you get better, Small Fries. I hate to hear that. It's terrible. Let me see if it's even loaded that. Okay. All right, guys. I'm going to let her take over this one real quick. Will you hand me my phone real quick? And I'll be right back. Let me get this pulled up for her.
You can go over the...
Let me see. Is that it?
That one's about his apartment.
This one here?
That one's about his apartment.
That one. Okay. There you go.
That one's about his apartment too, but we'll go for that one.
That one will work. Here, let me go down past that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
Here's the mouse. And you want to click back over, or do you just want to stay here?
I'll just stay there.
Okay. Here, don't touch that button on the side on the mouse, because you know what it'll do.
We got a new mouse, and it has these buttons on the side. And every time that you touch these buttons on the side of it, it takes you back to the previous page. So that's no fun. So basically, we talked about how they went to his home. He had just bought this house in a neighboring county to where he was working, or where he was beginning to work, back in November of last year. And we talked about how, the cops here had went and searched that home and how they had gotten some things from that house. Turns out that he actually still had his apartment from Chesterfield County, Virginia, where he was stationed at as a state trooper. He still was on the lease of that apartment, and it turns out that police never searched that apartment after all of this took place. So we'll kind of read over this a little bit. It says, police never searched a Chesterfield County apartment belonging to Austin Lee Edwards, the law enforcement officer who unalived 3 relatives of a 15-year-old Riverside, California girl whom police say he catfished online. A judge on Wednesday approved Edwards' eviction from that apartment. So they evicted him, after the fact. FYI. Now that the eviction is official, any evidence that might exist within could be removed or destroyed if it has not been already. In addition to the Riverside 15-year-old girl he kidnapped, Edwards pursued at least one other child, a 13-year-old girl, whom he solicited photos from even after she disclosed her age. So that's the girl that we just read the article about. Experts say many predators have multiple victims and that any evidence, especially technology or paper files, could aid police in learning about other children or abusers. But the Riverside Police Department, which is leading the investigation into the unalivings, did not need to search the apartment. We did not need to in relation to our investigations, said Ryan Railsback, a spokesperson for the department, in a statement. Officials already had items seized from his Saltville house that are relevant to our investigation. Riverside police only searched Edwards' newly purchased white Cape Cod-style home in Saltville, Virginia, which he bought shortly before the homicides. The Smith County Sheriff's Department helped execute that warrant on November 26th, the day after the unalivings. So, Smith County was present for the search warrant when they actually had a warrant on November 26th. The county that he had been hired to work at, which is Washington County, Virginia, had gone the night before, November 25th, which was the night that everything happened in California. That's when they had actually gone to the house. There wasn't a search warrant that was issued for the house that night. So that's what's kind of iffy about that. The Chesterfield Police Department and Sheriff's Office did not search Edwards' apartment either, officials there said. At some point, police will want to secure a warrant and conduct a search to determine if there is any evidence to suggest if Edwards abused other victims, said William Pelfrey, a professor of criminal justice at Virginia Commonwealth University's Wilder School of Government. He is dead, so there's no case to be made against him. But if there were other victims or firearms, that seems like something police would want to know.
All right. Did you get through that one?
Oh, there's still quite a bit there, but basically
We got the
gist of it.
Okay. Let me go back to the StreamYard. Let me not hit that button, please.
I know. It's a scary little button.
It's a scary button. If you hit that button, you might as well close out whatever you're on because it's going bye-bye to you.
Yeah, they never searched the apartment. Like I said, they searched the house, but
yeah,
he had just been in the house. He had just bought it, what, a week or two, like 2 weeks before.
Oh, that's cool. Surf Girl said, I really enjoyed Cam and Allie's lives. Waiting to hear more on the church on Summer's case as well. Okay, and we're going to get to that. I want to do something. We might cover that. What is this one? That's the DNA thing we went over at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good one. Let me see. Close that out so we have enough bandwidth and close that out. You're going to have to finish this on your own, by the way.
Okay.
Is that okay with you?
It depends.
I think you can do it.
I'm not worried about it.
If you want to, you know where that video is?
Which one?
You should know what the video with, if you have time to, and you want to go over the David Dodge system. We're already 41 minutes in, so we probably
let's
might.
Just finish
We can do that next, but we promise y'all we're going to be back more often. Thank you guys that have been our members and have continued to be. We are going to be back more often.
We are.
It's everybody knows from back watching us a while back, we had some trials and tribulations come up in our personal lives, so we had to get all that stuff figure it out. And thank you for the people that have cared for us and check in on us. We really do appreciate each and every one of you.
Very much so.
Very much so. We're going to do bigger and better things with this channel than y'all could even imagine. We've got big plans for it. So just be ready. I think y'all will be happy with it. And Jacqueline Jen said, "Where are you going, Cam?" I have to run to the store before it closes, and I'm on foot, so that's what
They close very soon.
They close very soon. I didn't realize what time it was. So
we didn't start till 11:35, which we started a little early, but still.
Yeah, can you? Oh no, I have to find those keys so I can get that. It'll be all right.
Which ones?
The keys to the mailbox and stuff.
Oh.
All right, so here, let's pull this up
We
real
have
quick.
2 sets of keys. We have one car that is not in commission at the moment, so those keys get lost quite a bit.
Yeah, they get lost a lot. This is what we'll do. We'll play an intermission real quick for y'all. I'll get those keys, and then she'll be back to continue this live till it's over. So bear with us. Here's a little intermission for y'all. Tell us where you're from. Put it in the chat. We'll try to click on it. Here you go.
I know you told your friend you're not okay, and tell me what's wrong and why you never said you felt that way. And guess you're trying to stay strong and fake a smile until I look away. But I've known you too long, it hurts to watch your blue eyes fade to gray as you fade away. As you fade away.
Yeah, I'm about to fade away, cause every time I wake up I feel like it's Monday. Something's going wrong with all the chemicals up in my brain. All of a sudden I don't look at anything the same way. Gotta build up of my thoughts sitting in an ashtray. I'm sorry that I'm so inconvenient, okay. Just let me be me and I'll stay out of your way. I can see the way you look at me, I'm such a disgrace. I never really asked to be brought into this place. You wanna love me? Well then baby have a taste. All the highs and the lows, no you'll never be the same. I don't really wanna hurt you, but I can't control the pain. If you're sticking by my side, maybe we could be okay. Okay, maybe you could be the change I need today. I promise that I've never felt this way. I really hope that you will choose to stay through all the pain.
I know you told your friend you're not okay, and tell me what's wrong and why you never said you felt that way. And guess you're trying to stay strong and fake a smile until I look away. But I've known you too long, it hurts to watch your blue eyes fade to gray as you fade away. As you fade away. As you fade away.
Okay. So, we'll see what we can. I've never sat in the driver's seat here, so I don't know how how this is gonna work out, but we'll get it done. Okay. I have a couple more things on that I wanted to go over. So, he was just talking about how he shouldn't have had his gun rights. So, let me see if I can get that pulled up. We'll see. If anything, I know. Okay. Still coming up. Give it just a minute. Thank you guys. I've saw a lot of you commenting on my hair. Thank you very much. I feel like I'm too old to wear my hair like this, but I've been doing it anyway. So, okay. Court records show Edwards had gun rights revoked after 2016 mental health crisis. So, Newly obtained documents show that a former Virginia trooper and recently hired Washington County deputy at the center of a triple unaliving investigation in Riverside, California, had his right to purchase or possess a firearm revoked in 2016 after he was committed to a psychiatric facility for treatment. Riverside police say 28-year-old Austin Lee Edwards, who was hired as a deputy in Washington County on November 16th, catfished a 15-year-old girl online while pretending to be a 17-year-old boy. Investigators say Edwards drove across the country and on November 25th killed the girl's mother and grandparents and burned their home before driving off with the teen. Later that day, Edwards unalived himself with his service pistol during a shootout with law enforcement. So if you all remember when we went over this, originally it was stated that that a sniper had unalived him from a helicopter. And that turned out, they said that was not true. They said that actually he had unalived himself and that he had done it with his service firearm from Washington County. So, according to a treatment order and an accompanying notification letter that was sent to the Virginia State Police's Central Criminal Records Exchange, Edwards, then 21, agreed to voluntary admission to a psychiatric hospital in February 2016 after being held for evaluation under a temporary detention order. According to the documents, Edwards had been advised that he was prohibited from purchasing, possessing, or transporting a firearm. Under Virginia law, any person who is held on a TDO and is subsequently admitted to a treatment facility, whether voluntarily or involuntarily, is prohibited from buying or possessing a firearm until that right is restored by a court. Violation of the law, according to Virginia Code, is punishable as a Class 1 misdemeanor. Tom Scott, a law professor at Appalachian School of Law, which is also in Southwest Virginia, and a practicing defense attorney who reviewed the documents, explained that the process is in place to help protect those suffering from mental breakdowns as well as those around them. So, it's interesting to me that he had his gun rights basically terminated because of this TDO. So he was not able to go out and buy a firearm. He could not possess a firearm technically, legally. However, he was able to become a law enforcement officer. And that's scary to me. According to a police report from the Abingdon Police Department, Edwards was held on the 2016 TDO after he'd cut himself, bit his father, tried to bite first responders, and threatened to unalive himself and his father. Edwards' father told police he had no explanation why his son tried to harm himself, but suggested that relationship issues he was experiencing with a girlfriend may have contributed. So, what we just found out when we were reading about that 13-year-old girl that he had been talking to, she said that basically she had kind of stopped talking to him about 2 weeks before this happened. So that leads me to kind of believe that, as well as him telling all of his friends whenever he drove to California in November that he was going to go see his girlfriend. Obviously, people knew that he was talking to girls online. I'm assuming they all thought that they were overage, that they were adults, legal adults. But obviously, they were not. And he was actually talking to underage girls, one of which he told he was a teenager as well. When a person loses their firearm rights for such reasons, Scott said that information is forwarded to the Central Criminal Records Exchange. The exchange, according to the Virginia State Police's website, provides the database for the agency's firearms transaction program, which provides records checks for firearms purchases for registered dealers. So if he tried to purchase a firearm, then the firearms dealer has to call it in to the CCRE, and they would learn that this person was unauthorized to purchase a firearm. Virginia law provides an avenue for restoration of firearm rights after release from mental health treatment. According to the code, those seeking to have those rights restored can petition the General District Court in which they reside or in which treatment was ordered. No record of such hearing taking place in Edwards's case was found in public records. Additionally, the portion of the CCRE notification form designated for completion after restoration has occurred has not been filled out. So, what does that mean? He did not have his rights back to be able to own a firearm or to possess a firearm. So that's scary. So that kind of leads into what I wanted. The whole reason that I wanted to bring this up tonight is because there was an update on this case a few days ago, and I had been trying to save it for whenever we had gone live again, and of course it took us a few days, but when all of this happened, the state of Virginia, the governor actually came out and he said that he wanted the state of Virginia to investigate how Austin Lee Edwards could have ever been hired as a Virginia state trooper or as a officer at all in the state of Virginia. And the governor said that once this came out, this investigation, once it was completed, that they would be 100% transparent with the public. So, I was kind of looking forward to see how that could happen, how somebody could be hired given his history. So, let's look and see what the investigation ended up coming up, okay? Because it's not exactly what they said. Let's do this. Okay. Probe into state police hiring of catfish cop ends with no investigative report. After it was revealed Virginia State Police failed to fully check the mental health background of a former state trooper who unalived 3 people in California last November while attempting to abduct a teenage girl he had chatted with online, Governor Glenn Youngkin said he had requested a full investigation into the agency's vetting process. So, the reason they kind of focused more on the state police the state police hiring him instead of Washington County hiring him is because like they had said in the beginning that since he had been hired by the state police, that maybe Washington County just kind of took their word for it, which is not necessarily a smart thing to do. I mean, we can all hope that's kind of taking the lazy way out, in my opinion, because you're going to hire somebody and say, okay, well, They looked into him and they hired him. So what's the point in us looking into him? What if they had caught what had happened and seen that he had been hired by them without them doing a good investigation? I'm not going to comment. No comment on that one, but all I can say is we have a what's it called? A where you vote. There's people running that I hope get it other than that person, but coming up soon. But anyway, if Washington County had vetted him better, they would have seen what was going or what had happened with him back in 2016. And they could have said, wait a second, why was he ever hired with the Virginia State Police? That should have never happened. And they could have at least taken him out of that role, because maybe that could have, not saying that could have really helped anything in this case, because obviously he was already talking to this young girl and he already had this whole thing planned. And the reason I say he had this all planned is because he had bought this house in Saltville, which is a county down the road, and he had actually blacked out all of the windows in that house. So from the looks of it, he was planning on going and kidnapping this young girl and bringing her back here. And he was going to go back to work on Monday with Washington County Sheriff's Department like nothing had happened. And he was just going to have her locked in his house, is what it seems like was going to happen. Now, yeah, you don't have to, Toaster Oven. I have to keep my mouth shut. But anyway, so I hate that this happened. I hate it for that girl, the 15-year-old. She had a sister that also lived with her and her mom and her grandparents. And, they were just left without their family. And that's heartbreaking. I am very thankful also for my own family that he is not here now. Luckily, he was in orientation still when this happened. He had only been hired by Washington County, I think, 9 days before this occurred. But that's scary to me. And we talked about this when this actually happened. It's just very scary to me, because if anything had happened that we needed to call law enforcement for any reason, that man very well, because of where we live, that man very well could have showed up at our house. And we have a daughter who, she's not a teenager yet, thank goodness, but she will be in a few years, and that's scary. So, anyway, let's go back to our little full investigation of Virginia into this Virginia State Police hiring him. So, Governor Glenn Youngkin said he had requested a full investigation into the vetting process. And once the investigation is completed, there will be full transparency, Youngkin told reporters in mid-December. However, the watchdog agency believed to be conducting the investigation into the hiring of Austin Lee Edwards now says it has closed its probe into the matter, and there is no official report on what it found. No official report. So, how's that being fully transparent? I don't understand. The only document the Office of the State Inspector General said it could provide was a December 30th letter written by State Police Superintendent Gary Settle. The letter recounts the state police's own assessment of what went wrong and ideas for how to prevent similar mistakes going forward. The administrative hotline case is complete and has been closed by OSIG in accordance with established policy, Chief Deputy Inspector General Corrine Loudon said when asked about the status of the investigation Youngkin described. Jeff Pike, a private investigator in Wytheville, who formerly worked in law enforcement and has provided media outlets with internal state police documents that contradicted the agency's initial public statements about Edwards, said that the state police letter falls far short of the type of investigation he feels was warranted. Absolutely. If I recall correctly, what they put out, what the state police put out regarding this was that there was a human error made. A human error. So they didn't point out that, obviously somebody did not do their due diligence when checking out anything in his background. I don't know. That's just... If that is indeed the embodiment of this investigation, then basically the state police investigated themselves. That's what it sounds like, Pike said. And they're sticking with a narrative that comes nowhere close to addressing the multiple mistakes made with this guy and in their hiring process. Exactly. You would think to be honest with you, okay, if he had just been hired as a sheriff in town or as a county deputy like he was with Washington County, if they had done an investigation, I could see something like this happening. Them being like, oh, well, it was a human error, whatever. This is our investigation. We investigated ourselves. However, with it being the state police, I feel like they should have really I feel like it needed to be checked out, because if he was hired, who else do we have in our state police? It scares me. It's another reason I'd like to get out of here. Anyway. And see, that's the way it's supposed to be here. They're supposed to go through many different intensive background checks. But obviously that's not happening. I mean, how can you say that you even did a single background check on him if he's not even allowed to own a gun or to possess a firearm, but you're giving them to him as a part of his job to protect people? Exactly. And think of what... I don't think that there's any way with the way that he went about committing the crimes he committed that he could have ever gotten away with them. But what would have happened if he did? And he came back to work on Monday and he had this young girl in his house and there was no evidence. Because, I mean, we see that crimes can be committed without any evidence being left behind. We see that. What if that had happened and he ended up coming back and going straight back to work? And then he was living two separate lives with as he was before, but now he actually had that girl in his possession. And it's hard to tell what could have happened. I mean, it's bad enough. That's horrifying what happened to that little girl and her family. And I cannot imagine the guilt that that little girl has probably put on herself, even though he lied to her, even though she thought she was talking to a teenager, a 17-year-old. Just knowing that she had talked to this person on the internet and that she thought he was somebody totally different, but now she's lost her mom and both of her grandparents because of it. That's heartbreaking. So I know we speculated a lot in the beginning because it wasn't really clear whether he had been terminated from the state police or if he had left them on his own to come closer back to home, because he's originally from down here where we live. He's actually closer to the county that I'm originally from, but that's kind of weird. He had been stationed in Chesterfield, which is up near Richmond, I think. And that's where he was living and being a state trooper. And from everything that I have found, because we kind of had thought maybe the state police had realized that they had kind of messed up and had removed him from his position with the state police, and that he had come down here and gotten a job, because I know with other jobs, such as hospital jobs and things like that, that sometimes people can lose their jobs and it can be kind of kept quiet so that they can continue their career in other places. I know that's happened with like CEOs of hospitals and stuff. They've gotten in trouble for things and it's been very hush-hush, and then they've been able to go on and become CEOs of other hospitals. Not saying how I know that. Just heard it through the grapevine. But so I kind of wondered if maybe that had happened in this case too. But evidently, now we will probably never know the truth, because obviously the state police investigated themselves regarding them hiring him. So they surely would not tell the truth about him leaving them, I'm sure. But apparently, according to people who knew him, they said that he wanted to get a job closer to home where his father was. His father still lives here in the same county that he was actually going to be working for, from what I know. And so he made it closer to home, but then he ended up leaving and going and committing all this terrible crime. So the reason that he ended up in the psychiatric facility is because in 2016, his father had called the cops because he had self-harmed himself. Austin Lee Edwards had. And he had also bit his father. And then when EMTs arrived, he bit the EMTs, or attempted to bite the EMTs. And then whenever all that happened, he threatened to unalive himself and his father. So they ended up getting a temporary detention order on him, a TDO. And he ended up being put into the psychiatric facility. That's awesome, Jacqueline. She should be very proud, and you should be very proud, because that's amazing. So when all this came out, when this happened, you know, we were kind of talking about, on our channel, we were talking about corruption in police departments. And of course there's corruption in every kind of job there is. But when you think about police, you think about how they are supposed to protect you and they're supposed to protect your family. And then you hear about things like this, and you hear about things like police officers who are committing SA against children and things like that. And it's scary, because you don't know who these people are. And we don't know who these people are that we're trusting to take care of our families, or who we're trusting to come if something bad happens and we have to call somebody to come to our house to protect us, or to, you know, anything. You don't know who's showing up at your house. But that doesn't, I'm not saying that all cops are bad, by no means, because there are plenty of amazing cops, and I'm very thankful for them. But unfortunately, you hear more about the bad eggs than you do the good ones. And that's just like with anything. So, okay. So, let me see. That's pretty much all we were going to cover on him. We were going to talk a little bit about, we hit on the Idaho 4 in the beginning. Okay, I was like, did I miss something? Yeah. And that's what I'm saying. It's scary. Yeah. I don't ever want to go there either. I'm just happy that, unfortunately, it's unfortunate that all of this had to happen with this little girl and her family. However, I'm very thankful that, like I said, that he is not a police officer here where I live and where my children are, because it's just terrifying. So, anyway, one thing that we were going to talk about was with the Idaho 4. So it seems like now we're kind of shifting gears again for just a minute, and then we'll get off here. There's been a lot coming out where his defense attorney, Ann Taylor, she is Brian Kohberger's defense attorney, is requesting for the prosecution to hand over a bunch of evidence, including the evidence like pictures and diagrams and any kind of evidence that was taken from the Hyundai Elantra, as well as when he was arrested in Pennsylvania, and a lot, actually, his interrogation with Officer Payne of Moscow Police Department. His defense has not received a lot of the evidence up until now. And, you know, they're supposed to be going to the preliminary hearing in a month and a half, little less than 2 months. So it's almost, it makes you wonder, why is the prosecution not wanting to turn over this evidence? Is it because they're just trying to wait until the last possible minute. That way that his defense can't come up with any reason or any way to go against it? Or is it because they don't have a lot of evidence, or they're trying to hide something in their evidence? Me and Cam have went round and around and around trying to figure out, like, or just discussing what we think could be the reason that they haven't been sharing it with his defense yet. We'll go over more of that stuff kind of maybe tomorrow. Like Cam said, we are going to try to start going live more frequently. We've said that every single time we've been live for the last, I don't know how long, but we really, truly mean it. We have every intention of going live more often. If not every night, at least every other night, at least every couple nights, but we are going to be doing better. I promise we're going to do better. It's just been one thing after another lately, and it's like every time that we're like, okay, we're going to start doing better on the channel, something ends up happening and we end up getting distracted. So I promise that's going to be changing soon. Right. Well, okay. So for the preliminary hearing, they actually have to provide the pretty much the defense has to have everything that the prosecution has access to, from what I understand. And that's just so that they can be prepared for the preliminary hearing and trial if trial comes after the preliminary hearing. So I kind of wonder if there's even going to be a preliminary hearing at this point. I don't know if we'll get that far or if they will end up with a grand jury indictment. I know that there's been a lot of stuff a lot of people talking about how they think that the grand jury will indict him before the preliminary hearing even gets here. And that's possible. I kind of hope that they do not, because I really would like to get to the preliminary hearing. That way that we can kind of see what they have against him. Because as of right now, as we were talking earlier, a lot of the evidence that was in the affidavit seems to be circumstantial. And yes, they have that DNA there, but if you guys were here in the beginning, you seen that that Cam showed that video that he made of touch DNA and how that can be spread extremely easily. I mean, you can use a buggy at Walmart and then somebody come up behind you and use that same buggy, and then they have your DNA on them, and then they go and commit a crime and your DNA is at the crime scene and you never even set foot there. That's scary. So I just would like to see what else they have. I'm still very iffy about the car because I think it's very strange that they had already found his 2015 Hyundai Elantra, and they already had him in their sights, Moscow, that is. And 2 weeks later, or a week later, they were just now announcing to the public that they were looking for a 2011 to a 2013 Hyundai Elantra. But his is a 2015. And I know that there's differences between them. And the FBI agent who was the one who pinned down what the car was that they were looking for, he's supposed to have like 35 years of experience in that specific field of figuring out cars. So See, that's one thing we don't know, though. We don't know if it didn't have anybody else's DNA. Obviously, the sheath, depending on the location, I mean, we know it was right beside Maddie's body. Therefore, more than likely, it had at least Maddie's DNA on it. And we don't know. We just know that they found that one specific area that had his DNA. But we'll see. I've told Cam, and in no way, shape, or form do I think that he is innocent. I think that he definitely has something to do with it. What? I don't know yet. I still feel like it's a lot. Just the crime itself was a lot to happen in the time frame that they are saying it happened for one person to do. I feel like he possibly could have had an accomplice or multiple accomplices. I don't know. I told Cam the day he was arrested, I told him, I said, I feel like he probably did it, but I also feel like he probably has something up his sleeve that is going to get him out of it. And that was before, we heard the statements of him saying that he couldn't wait to get back to Idaho to be exonerated and all that. I don't know. I just feel like there's something about it that he knows that there's some way that he'll be able to provide reasonable doubt. And that's all there has to be. Reasonable doubt whenever they get to a jury trial. And if there is reasonable doubt with one juror, then he can walk. So, I don't know. All right. So, we've been going an hour and 23 minutes. So, what we'll do, we'll save the rest of all this so that we can talk about it when Cam is with us tomorrow or the next day. Hopefully tomorrow. Fingers crossed. And we'll come back and we'll talk about everything. Thank you guys so much for being here. Thank you for staying with me after Cam left me. I hope I didn't get you too lost. Like I said, this was my first time in the driver's seat, so hopefully it went okay. But anyway, I hope you guys have a good evening or night now or morning, depending on where you are. And we'll see you guys tomorrow. Okay? We love you guys, and we will see you later. Let me find this. Okay.